Hey there! Welcome to the epic tale of the Maccabean Revolt. This is the ultimate story of a group of Jewish rebels who dared to take on the mighty Seleucid Empire. With grit and determination, the Maccabees rose up against impossible odds to achieve one of the most inspiring victories in history. Join us as we explore the inspiring story of the Maccabean Revolt and the remarkable men and women who fought for justice and liberty. In the 2nd century BCE, the land of Judea found itself sandwiched between the Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt and the Seleucid Empire of Syria. The Egyptians controlled Judea initially, but Seleucid rule soon took over around 200 BCE. Enter Antiochus IV Epiphanes, who ascended to the Seleucid throne in 175 BCE, following the death of his predecessor, Seleucus IV Philopator. Antiochus wasted no time in implementing Hellenization efforts initiated by Alexander the Great, but these were met with fierce resistance from the Jewish population in Jerusalem. You see, the Jewish people believed that the holder of the high priesthood was a divinely appointed individual, but Antiochus viewed the holder of this position as nothing more than a local governor. At the time of Antiochus's ascension, the holder of the prestigious office, Onias III, but his brother Jason approached Antiochus and bribed him to appoint him as high priest instead of his brother. Jason abolished the traditional theocracy, renaming Jerusalem to Antiochia in honor of the man he owed his position to. Menelaus soon approached Antiochus and bribed him to appoint him high priest, ordering the assassination of Onias as one of his first acts in office. Subsequently, Jason drove Menelaus out of Jerusalem and became the high priest again. In response, Antiochus attacked Jerusalem in 168 BCE, pillaging the Holy Temple and taking many women and children captive. As part of his Hellenization efforts, Antiochus cracked down on many Jewish religious practices, burning all copies of the Torah, making possession of it a capital offense. Circumcision was banned, and any woman caught carrying out the practice was killed. The Sabbath was banned, and all traditional Jewish ritual sacrifices were forbidden, while sacrifices to Greek gods were carried out on Jewish altars that had been converted into Greek altars. Around the same time as the attack on Jerusalem, Antiochus sent some of his men into the Judean countryside to enforce his Hellenization policy. An officer named Apelles led a small force into the village of Modian and ordered the local priest, Mattathias the Hasmonean, to be the first to sacrifice a pig to the Greek gods. The Jewish priest refused, and when another Jew stepped forward and offered to carry out the task, Mattathias killed the Jewish man along with Apelles. Mattathias and his 5 sons subsequently incited the villagers to revolt and kill the rest of the Seleucid men sent by Antiochus. Following this event, Mattathias led his sons and the Jewish people of Modian into the Gophna Hills, a region more easily defendable. It took 1 year for the news of what occurred in the small village to reach Antiochus, and by this time Mattathias had died and his son Judas stepped up to lead the revolt. The Jews spent the break in action, recruiting and training its fighting men in guerrilla tactics, while also constructing an effective intelligence-gathering operation in the region, in preparation for the inevitable response from their Syrian overlords. This was just the beginning of the remarkable tale of rebellion and triumph that is the Maccabean Revolt. Battle of Wadi Haramia, 167 BCE. A 2,000-strong Seleucid force, led by Apollonius, marched towards Jerusalem from Samaria, unaware that Judas Maccabee and his 600 Jewish men were waiting for them. The route the Seleucids chose through the mountainous region east of the Maccabees' stronghold in Gophna was perfect for an ambush, but Apollonius had not planned for one. Judas divided his smaller force into 4 units, each led by one of his brothers, and launched a surprise attack on the Seleucid vanguard. The main Jewish unit, led by Judas himself, appeared on the eastern slope of the narrow valley and struck the side of the Seleucid column, causing chaos and confusion among the Syrian troops. The 3rd and 4th Jewish units soon joined in, causing even more mayhem. The Syrians, who had never experienced an ambush before, were trapped and bewildered, and the Jewish attack worked with great effect. Jewish archers soon struck and killed Apollonius, leaving the Seleucid force leaderless and vulnerable. The determined Jewish men quickly destroyed all remnants of the Seleucid order and killed many Syrians while only suffering minimal casualties. This surprising victory at the Battle of Wadi Haramia gave the Maccabees a much-needed boost in confidence. News of the victory quickly spread, causing the Jewish army to swell in numbers. Many Jewish men who resented the Hellenization of their homeland and persecution of Jewish people took the opportunity to fight back against the invading Syrians. Judas and his brothers even began dreaming and planning complete independence from the mighty Seleucid Empire. The Battle of Wadi Haramia was a significant turning point in the Maccabean Revolt, and the triumph of Judas Maccabeus against the Seleucid invaders sent shockwaves across the empire. But the victory was short-lived, as the Syrian general Seron saw it as a mere blunder and marched towards Jerusalem with a larger army to teach the Jews a lesson. With overconfidence on his side, Seron took a route along the Mediterranean coastline, hoping to avoid any surprise attacks from the Maccabees. Little did he know that he was walking into a trap, as the Jewish rebels were waiting for him with a plan to ambush his army. Will the Maccabees be able to defend their homeland and repel the invading army? Battle of Beth Horon, 166 BCE. As the Maccabean army grew to thousands strong, their intelligence-gathering network became increasingly robust. When the Seleucid general attempted to march through the pass at Beth Horon undetected, Jewish lookouts immediately informed Judas of the enemy's movements. Judas and his brothers wasted no time in preparing another deadly ambush, taking advantage of the steep slopes flanking the ascent to the pass. General Seron recognized the risk of an ambush and split his force into separate units, with gaps in between, making his column of troops over a mile long. However, Jewish archers were already in position on either side of the trail, ready to unleash their bows and slings on the unsuspecting Syrians. Judas personally led the sealing unit that attacked the Seleucid vanguard, while the Jewish archers discharged a deadly volley of missiles, killing many more. General Seron was one of the first to die, killed by Judas himself. The Syrians' orderly column quickly fell into disarray, and they attempted to flee the merciless Jews, but the determined rebels gave chase, killing many more. In the end, 800 Syrians were killed, and a vast amount of high-quality equipment and arms were left behind. News of the decisive victory at Beth Horon spread throughout Judea, and the Jewish army swelled to an impressive 6,000-strong force. Judas instructed his veteran soldiers to train up the new recruits from all over Judea. It became clear to Antiochus that the Maccabean Revolt was not merely a ragtag band of rebels, but a well-trained army of determined Jews led by a natural military genius. 165 BCE, a civil war broke out in the eastern region of the Seleucid Empire just as the Maccabean victory at Beth Horon was taking place. Antiochus, the ruler of the Seleucid Empire, decided to tackle both issues at once. He left the Judean revolt to be dealt with by his relative Lysias and instructed him to annihilate the strength of Israel and the remnant of Judea. Lysias then ordered generals Gorgias, Nicanor, and Ptolemy to crush the Jews. The Seleucid army, with 20,000 soldiers, marched from Syria in the spring of 165 BCE and established a large base camp at Emmaus, bringing along with them massive amounts of gold and silver in preparation for the lucrative slave trade that they envisioned following the demise of the Jewish revolt. Judas Maccabeus, the Jewish leader, split his army into 4 smaller units of 1,500 men each, led by one of his brothers, and waited for the Syrian camp at a hilly area near Latrun. He learned through his intelligence-gathering network that the triumvirate of Seleucid generals had planned a night attack. Judas quickly planned a countermeasure to combat the Seleucid plans. He lit many bonfires at the camp before removing the bulk of the Jewish army from the camp, leaving behind a small unit of soldiers to tend the bonfires and act as a decoy. General Gorgias led a 6,000-man force during the night, and the Syrians rushed the Jewish camp. They only found the smaller decoy unit left behind, which was ready to quickly flee from the camp. The small band of Jews, led the Syrians through a narrow passage where Judas had deployed one of his 1,500-man units, ready to ambush the Seleucid soldiers. With 6,000 Syrians and General Gorgias engaged elsewhere, Judas positioned one of the 1,500-man units to the rear of the Syrian camp, ready to attack when signaled. Judas led his remaining 3,000 soldiers, ready to carry out his planned surprise daybreak attack on the encampment. However, Seleucid spies informed their superiors of the planned attack. As Judas and his men approached, they were stunned to find the opposing army fully prepared for battle, positioned in a large phalanx on the plains in front of the encampment, with a cavalry unit present to cover the flanks. Thinking on his feet, Judas divided his force into 3 smaller battalions of 1,000 men each and planned to attack the Seleucid force in their vulnerable flank. One of the Jewish battalions engaged the cavalry, leaving the phalanx with unprotected flanks. Judas took the opportunity and surged forward with the remaining 2 battalions, attacking the enemy formation on its right flank. The 1,500-man Jewish unit waited behind the Seleucid encampment, listening to the sounds of battle. When they heard the signal they had been waiting for, they rushed down from their hidden position and caught the unprepared Seleucid soldiers off guard. The Syrians, protected by the phalanx, had assumed they would not need to fight that day, but the Jews quickly threw their camp into disarray. As the battle progressed, the phalanx began to break apart, and its men retreated to their encampment. However, the Jewish soldiers prevented them from finding safety amidst the chaos. The Seleucid army suffered heavy losses and attempted to retreat towards the Mediterranean coastline. Judas Maccabeus had shown strategic brilliance by stopping his men from pursuing the fleeing Syrians immediately, as General Gorgias and his 6,000-man force were still engaged near the Jewish camp. Instead, Judas ordered his men to set fire to the Syrian camp to lure the remaining Seleucid army away from their engagement. The Syrians soon realized they were about to be flanked and trapped between 2 bodies of determined Jewish soldiers, and they joined the mass retreat towards the coastline. Judas then ordered his men to give chase and kill many more helpless and bewildered soldiers. This victory was the Maccabean rebels' biggest to date against the Seleucid Empire. They looted the Seleucid encampment at Emmaus, acquiring much-needed equipment, arms, gold, and silver. Despite the odds, Judas Maccabeus had once again led his soldiers to triumph. The Jews were euphoric as they returned to their homes and the temple in Jerusalem, where they rededicated it to their God. They celebrated this momentous victory, which became known as the Battle of Emmaus, by instituting the festival of Hanukkah, which is still celebrated today. The Battle of Emmaus demonstrated the importance of strategy and intelligence gathering in warfare, as well as the ability to adapt and improvise on the battlefield. Judas Maccabeus proved himself to be a brilliant military commander who was able to outmaneuver and defeat a much larger and better equipped army. His leadership and courage inspired his troops to fight with determination and bravery, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The Maccabean Revolt and the Battle of Emmaus are remembered as defining moments in Jewish history, marking the beginning of Jewish self-determination and the struggle for religious freedom. The legacy of Judas Maccabeus and his army lives on, inspiring future generations to stand up for what they believe in and fight for their rights and freedoms. Thank you for joining us on our journey through the Maccabean Revolt. Stay updated by subscribing and turning on notifications. Follow us on TikTok and YouTube Shorts for more history content. Thumbs up and share if you found this video informative. We appreciate your support. Leave a comment with ideas or thoughts. Thank you for tuning in to Historic History.